Thanks for joining me. The following is a video tutorial for how to create drawing sheets for the CANstruction project here in Fusion 360. To get started, you will need completed part files and an assembly file. Here is a look at what the 4 drawing sheets will be. You're going to have one for the 10.5-ounce soup can. We're going to put some dimensions on there, just some basic dimensions for the overall height and diameters. And we will add center lines and center marks to that as well. The second drawing sheet I have here is for the 11.25 inch by 8.5 inch wood panel. Again, we're just going to apply some basic dimensions there for the overall height, width, and depth of those panels. The third drawing sheet is for the slightly larger one, the 33 inch by 8.5 inch, or the 2 foot by 9 inch, same thing, 33 inch there. And again, just showing the height, width, and depth of those. And then the last drawing sheet we'll put together is going to be for our assembly for the number 4. Again, I'll ask you to dimension the overall height, width, and depth. So my model came out to 4 feet and 1 inch tall, 2 feet and 9 inches wide, and 8.5 inches deep. We're also going to accompany this assembly with a parts list. I'll show you how to create that. And then we'll add some balloons to this as well for the item numbers that relate to the numbers that are listed there in the parts list. So to get started, the very first thing I'll have you do is go to your preferences up here in the upper right-hand corner. And you're going to go to drawing. And for dimension format, the default is set to decimal. And that does not add a unit. And you have to go in on every single sheet that you create and add a unit to it. And what I discovered is by switching this to engineering, it will add for us the inches symbol on every drawing sheet from here on out. So go ahead and edit your preferences under drawing here to engineering. If you'd like, you can double check your linear dimension precision and angular dimension precision and set them to at least 3 decimal points. I usually roll like that. And just say apply and OK. And once you have that setting put together for you, I'm going to open up my part file for the 10.5-ounce soup can. And to create the drawing sheet, you want to go to File up here, New Drawing from Design. When you click that, a window is going to pop up. And under Template, when you're getting started here, it'll probably say From Scratch. You want to hit this drop-down menu and click on the GBS title block that we installed in the previous class. With that selected, say OK. It will generate a new sheet for us, and it gives us the ability to place the first view. We want to start with the front view of the part. The scale here, it put it at default 1 to 4. I'm going to switch that from 1 to 4 to 1 to 2. And that'll fill the screen just a little bit more. I'm going to click once to place this view. And then before leaving this window, I'm going to set style to shaded so that we can see the image that we applied to it. And just go ahead and say OK. There is an option here for automatic center marks and center lines, but I want to show you how to add those manually. So I'm just going to skip that for now. Once that first view has been placed, we then go to projected view right here in the ribbon in the create panel and select our front view, drag our mouse up to create the top view, out here to the right to create the right view, and then kitty corner on an angle to that to create our isometric view. With all of those views placed, you then want to put your mouse over the check mark there to finish placing views. Next, we're going to add just some of those basic dimensions. Click on the dimension tool right here. You can click on the side of the can and place that value there. I then want to go and add the diameter of 2.69 for the outer ring and for the inner ring of 2.49. We now want to add the center mark. Center marks are going to be shown when you see anything that's rounded on an object or even curved on an edge. There's going to be a center mark there. So when you're looking at it from the circle's perspective, you're going to use a center mark and click on the largest ring that you have there so you get the largest center mark. And then with that, you should also have 2-dimensional center lines placed on the other views where the cylinder is not facing you directly. So here in our front view, I want to click on the side line on each side, on the left and right side. It's going to give me a center line right down the center and we will add that here in our side view as well. That is it for this drawing sheet. You can go ahead and save this and then take a screenshot of it and add it to your engineering notebook. The next one will be that smaller wooden panel, so the 11.25 by 8.5. Just going to scroll through my parts inventory and find that part file. And we'll repeat this process. So File, New Drawing from Design, GBS title block. For the template, say OK. This time around, for the orientation, front was not the best view for me, and so I want to switch this to top and adjust my scale to 1/4. Move the style over to shaded. Go ahead and place my front view. Say OK. Go to the projected tool. Click on the front view, projected view up, out to the right, and on an angle for the isometric. Hit the check mark to finish. We're going to go to dimension, and I'm just going to add the overall height, width, and depth on this. You can add the depth in either the top view or the side view. It's really up to you, depending on what kind of space you have. And that is it for this drawing sheet. Go ahead and save this, take a screenshot, add it to your engineering notebook. The next one will be for the 33-inch by 8.5, so we'll grab that. File, New Drawing, From Design, GBS title block. Say OK. I have to change my orientation again to the top. I'm going to change my scale from 1/16 to 1/8. Switch it over to shaded for the style. Place my front view, say OK. Projected view from that, up, side, isometric, check mark. Add a dimension, 33 inches across, 8.5 for the height, 0.5 for the depth. Click the wrong thing there. Dimension, just the side, 0.5. That's it for this drawing sheet. Save it, screenshot it, add it to your engineering notebook. Now, the last drawing sheet will be for that number 4 assembly. Let me pull that file up here. Same starting process, File, New Drawing, From Design, GBS title block, say OK. We're going to place the same 4 views. Orientation is the front. That works for me. 1/20th scale also feels like it'll fill the page pretty well, so I'm going to leave it at that. For style, of course, switch it over to shaded. We're going to add this. Even though this entire assembly has rounded objects in it, with an assembly file, you don't normally add your center marks and center lines like that. It'd be way too busy. So we're going to leave that off altogether. I'm just going to say OK, placing my front view, and then over onto projected view, top, side, isometric. I'm going to position these views a little bit over to the left this time, or towards the center rather, and just leave some space for our table, for our parts list over here. We want to add our overall dimensions. Just going to zoom in on the bottom of this can on the bottom to the can on the top corner there and place that. For this, I'm going to go off the piece of wood because that sticks out a little bit further than the cans do. Add that dimension. And then for the depth, I'll do it off of this view from that piece to there, 8.5. Okay. Now I have noticed while I was making my drawing sheets that the inches thing did not pull up the way it's supposed to. So even though I adjusted my preferences before, maybe it's just because I haven't saved and reloaded the software since then. The way to override that on each sheet is to go to Document Settings, click the gear. In this window, you want to expand units, and then click on inches here to include that. Add that, and then for format, yeah, I'm noticing it didn't switch over for some reason, so maybe I do need to reload. Either way, I'm going to switch it to engineering. That actually gets rid of the inches thing because it's just going to add the hash marks and say OK. And now my values have been converted. If they were over 12 inches, it just converts it down to a foot and inches, and it adds the inch marks there. So make sure you go through each sheet. Now that they're all created, go to units, switch it from decimal to engineering, say OK. Same thing over here, document settings. units, format, engineering. Say okay. So again, go through each one of your drawing sheets and edit that again if need be. Just going to close this so the screen's not as busy. Okay, so now on to one of our last couple of things, the parts list and the balloons. We're going to add just a table. If we do a regular parts list, I've noticed that it doesn't pull in the information the way that we want to see it at this stage. So we're just going to make our own custom table. When you click on that, it gives you an option to kind of sink it into the corner up here. Feel free to click on that corner. We can always reposition it later on if need be. We will not need every single column here. So if I just click twice in one of these cells, I can actually delete the selected column, make it a little smaller. Now you can see that we're actually off the corner there. So I'm going to right click on the table and say move and pick the reference point right here underneath where it says C. That's actually the corner of the table. As you can see, as I pulled it off, I'm going to put it back on the corner frame of the title block and say okay. And now just reposition the isometric a little bit if needed. And we're just going to start typing in here and fill in this information. So in the top row, we want to have it be all caps locks and say PARTS LIST parts list. Say okay, or just click on to the next cell. In column A, we're going to have item number. In column B, we're going to have quantity. So I'm just going to shorten that and say QTY. In column C, we're going to have part name. For item number, just go ahead and list those out 1, 2, 3. And then we can add, normally we would add a balloon with a parts list, but again, we're not using an actual parts list, and the balloon numbers are not going to relate the same way that we want to list these items out here in progression from can to the next wood layer to the largest wood layer. It's nice to be able to see the numbers in progression, just in order 1, 2, 3. So we're just going to add regular leader notes. Click on the can first. I'm going to click on the can that's on the top right corner and just add the number 1 to it. Another leader note, I'll click on the corner of the very first smaller piece of plywood that we had and call that number 2. And then another leader note on this 33-inch, the very first instance as it's coming down the list here from top to bottom. So 1, 2, 3. I was just saying before, it's nice to see the numbers just in progression, 1, 2, 3 like that. You're not hunting all over the map to find them. And I know this is simple. It's just 3 things, but either way, I like to see it in this order. And then for number 1, the part name, that is going to be our 10.5-ounce soup can. And for number 2, that is the 11.25-inch by 8.5-inch plywood panel. And row 3 there for part name, 33-inch or 2 feet and 9-inch, whatever you prefer, 33-inch by 8.5-inch plywood panel. And we can actually skinny up quantity because it's not going to need as much space. I'll expand part name out, so maybe we can try to get this all in just one row so it's not sticking out too far. So I'm just doing some resizing here. This looks good. And then for quantity, I'm just going to reference what I already had completed for this. So let me jog down here to my number 4 drawing assembly. So we had 240 individual soup cans in that design, 14 of the smaller wood panels, and 2 of the other wood panels. And I know here I also have part name and quantity switched. It would be better to have item number, quantity, and then part name. So when I made this example before, I wasn't really thinking it all the way through, which is fine. We're getting it right now here on the demo. Let me jog back to my last drawing sheet. So again, 240, 14, and 2. So everything is typed in correctly. Just need to make sure, trying to check my spacing here a little bit. And that would be fine. I was trying to get the second row out of 2 and 3, but as long as the parts list does not interfere with any of the views here on the screen, really that's fine. So for the sake of the demo, I'm going to call it here. This would be your completed fourth drawing sheet. Go ahead and save this file, take a screenshot, add it to your engineering notebook. I'll end the video by sharing my engineering notebook with you on screen. And oops. Go back here, go to the page where I have those inserted. So this is going to go into your develop a solution section. And again, I just have a quick description for what that drawing sheet is and a screenshot of it, signature stamps for that as well. 1, 2, and on my next page, 3, and the assembly there for drawing sheets. I do have this additional drawing sheet here that shows the 0 as well. My students do not need to show the 0, but I do have it for the sake of the project and for documentation for the future. Feel free to look through the other pages here as you're finishing up your project and make sure you have all your sections documented well. And hopefully you enjoyed CANstruction, and looking forward to starting our next project with you. Thanks for joining me. And until next time, I'll catch you later.